Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. And this is the New York of the 1950s. The photographer is Jerry Dantzic, a rediscovered legend, a photojournalist in love with his subjects, a chronicler of New York. My guest today is Grayson Dantzic, Jerry's son and his archivist. Grayson works with major photographers and their collections. He is also an accomplished musician and songwriter. Welcome, Grayson.
It's a pleasure.
How's your dad?
Well, he's had a great return lately. He's eating better.
Okay, let's give it some background.
Okay.
Jerry's got peripheral neuropathy, a degenerative neurological disease that's made him bedridden.
Absolutely. Most importantly, his return to talking, and what we're doing now is the documentary on his life. So it's very exciting that he give us the details behind the photographs, so they give us the emotion, the added information that makes these photographs so wonderful.
Okay. The first time I saw Jerry Dantzic, New York, the 50s in focus, I was walking with my wife. I was doing research in London, walking down Charing Cross Road, and there it was, sitting in a bookshop. And I said to my wife, wait a minute, what is this? And we walked in, and I purchased the book after much debate because it's big and we were going to carry it on the flight. And it truly is a remarkable piece of work. It is a long overdue discovery of a major figure in American photojournalism. And I had the real privilege of meeting and talking with your dad. It was a little bit of a tough interview because of his condition, but it really gets at the man.
Well, he was in love with New York. I think it was a tremendous love affair, but him visually and emotionally with the city, the ethnicity of the city, the possibilities of the city, the excitement of the city. He was a young man with a vision, and New York was his place to paint and do those things as far as his subjects.
Okay. Now, how did this book come about?
The dream of the book came from my heart. I mean, I wanted to know who my father was, and I got the excitement of going after his work in his studio, in his photography studio, which is one floor above where I was living as a young child in my parents' house.
I've been to the studio.
And
it's really a remarkable
it's a
place.
Victorian 5-story. It's like a mansion. I mean, I've lived in this incredible world, and suddenly all the doors that were closed were suddenly open. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what was going to be behind those doors and what was going to be in the boxes. And it was going to be originally a jazz book because I'm a musician, and I saw Billie Holiday and Miles Davis and Louis Armstrong and Chet Baker. But more and more it became a love, what we call a visual poem to the city. And actually we signed the contract in August of 2001, and then of course September 11th happened. And it became so much more of an important thing for New York to, these were the things we were fighting for, the different cultures, the things that have stayed the same, even, the San Gennaro Festival, the Chinatown, the Times Square. It's different, but it's the same.
Okay. Give some brief background about your dad. Just well, number one, he's an innovator. He's had a number of careers, and he's excelled in many of them.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm putting it together right now as far as his whole life. I don't think when he started his career, he had the view of the career from beginning to end. I look at his career as far as his initial start. He was a writer for Stars and Stripes.
And before that, a combat infantryman.
And he was a combat infantryman for the 30th Ohio Division. He got his first taste of, I would say, life, death, on those fields. And I mean, that was how he I have letters from Stars and Stripes that he would write about the lost generations in Europe. And visually, I think the information that would manifest itself in those pictures was being planted at that time. So he comes out of that and he goes back to New York for a while, and he attends Kent State University on the GI Bill, and then he goes back, that's in Ohio, and then he goes to Columbia University where he runs across great friends, Gary Winogrand, George Zimble, these incredible
Giants
photographers. Giants of photography. And through their influence and their inspiration, he ends up going to the Brodovich workshop, and he's involved with the Columbia Camera Club at Columbia University. And Brodovich is this incredible, master of photography who inspired everybody from Irving Penn to Avedon, you name it, they all cite him. So my father, with the inspiration, with his Leica camera, would get excited about these stories and stay up late printing and getting excited about photography, hanging out with this group of guys. So he got involved slowly but surely, put the portfolio together, did little stories. And
yeah, but more than that, I mean, he appeared in some of the great photo magazines. I mean, he's been in Life, he was in Look, Vanity Fair, he was in the Times, American Photo. You and I have gone through dozens of publications where his photographs appear.
Yeah, it's actually very exciting. You come across, when you become a super obsessive archivist, you come across little magazines which nobody else knows about. Little magazines like the Salon Photography, and then here, you've got this little article about portraits.
Close-up portraits. And that's one of the major themes of his work is people, the faces of people. He's got Jason Robards. He's got old fat men with big bellies on Coney Island.
Actors and musicians
and dancers.
And he made icons out of just the ordinary person.
Absolutely. One of the things is the ordinariness of it, but also the beauty in the ordinariness. It's the movement. It is the scene. It's a lot of movement. His dance pictures, Mambo Jumbo, for example, which is in the permanent collection of MoMA, is brilliant.
Well, Brodovich, again, that's a Brodovich connection, because Brodovich had been with the ballet book and the use of motion. So we can directly relate the excitement of motion through sports and dance and through children and all that to Brodovich, I would think.
And he's in permanent collections at the Met, at the Chicago Art Institute, at MoMA. I mean, I've seen the ones in New York.
I've had very interesting beginner's luck being able to sell to the museums, and I've had the good fortune of what I call locating gurus who have helped me. Sylvia Wolf at the Whitney Museum has been tremendous with her support in terms of, she came early on in this exciting adventure, and she looked through lots of images, and she decided that they were going to purchase the Mambo Jumbo. And then not only did they purchase it, but they showed it twice in 1 year, and now it's a postcard in the gift shop. So, I mean, it's been a tremendous...
I believe I've got the postcard from the gift shop.
There you go.
I do, and we'll show a larger on screen.
Absolutely. I mean, the things that have happened, I think it's come together through my own excitement of finding out who my father was and not knowing who he was. But as I dig deeper, it's like the more you look, the more you find.
Right.
And it was very exciting, because most recently, one of his famous pictures, which is the boys on the raft.
Right.
Well,
which
that was just one picture, of which there were 4 contact sheets, and we were just in the Williamsburg Bridge Show, Centennial Show, and here we are in a Spanish magazine.
Yeah, and by the way,
with this incredible...
Not only have you been in El Diario, but you've been a regular feature in the New York Sun, Jerry's photographs.
Well, we love the New York Sun for that. Amanda Gordon is a tremendous, supporter of the work, and she's been really instrumental in helping us. Last year we had 3 or 4 articles, and it was absolutely tremendous. Through lots of different things that have gone on, we've picked up incredible coverage. I mean, this is Popular Photography magazine, with a great 2-page spread. And I think that,
Again, I mean, let me interrupt.
Please.
Again, you've got this, well, and in fact, here's your mother on the Calliope at Coney Island.
Feldman's Carousel, to be precise.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carousel. Again, with motion, and then this underneath the boardwalk, you can just feel the motion of it. Now, Jerry was born in Baltimore. But he is a New York guy. In fact, I would say that he's a Brooklyn guy. He's almost a classic example of E.B. White's third type of New Yorker, the New Yorker who comes from somewhere else and gives it the drive and the energy. And in fact, that drive and energy is in your dad's photo.
And it's actually in my heart and what keeps me running. I think the energy that really carried my father to the tops of bridges and mountains, and that made him get excited about all the glitterati of the city and all these wonderful things, is really what burns in my heart when I see the excitement through contact sheets. I love those things. He tells me more in the pictures than he almost ever did, in that way, and that's why it's a visual situation for me. The book, it was like a child when I gave it to him. and I have a precious video of when I gave it to him. And because of his condition, the importance of every little thing is amplified by that much more. This book took 50 years it took me a little bit more than a year to get it done, and with the incredible support of an incredible editor named Joan Brookbank, who we really owe so much gratitude to, and she's also a good family friend. But this book, more than anything, opens the door. It's a key to a forgotten past. And what I've done with the book is not only for my father, but it's for all the forgotten ones, the men and women who were photographers in New York who have those images.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, we've had previous conversations with you dealing with the old timers, and they've been forgotten, and many of them are bitter, but several of them are also experiencing a renaissance in terms of not only the critics' view of them, but also more public exposure than they've gotten.
What I really like right now, what I see is a return to the rediscovery aspect of photography. I'm actually joining up with a lot of my father's old friends. I'm a member of an organization called PAI, which is Photographers Administration Incorporated. And there's a lot of photo leaguers, and there's a lot of those, incredible people who've won all the awards over the years. And when I go to these meetings, it's like being in the Hall of Fame. And some of them are more bitter than others because they haven't had the rewards, or they've tried, they're beaten down. But when I come in there with my eyes wide open and I put a camera in front of them or whatever, and I say, tell me some stories, they perk up, and then I go back and I see them in their houses with their incredible archives, and each one of them, an incredible book waiting, great shows. Everybody's got great work. I mean, not a miss in the bunch.
Okay, let's go back to Jerry and
sure.
When I first came to your house, you've got this beautiful brownstone. It's fabulous. I want to live there. But you've got room after room after room of undeveloped negatives.
It's not undeveloped. They're unprinted.
Oh, unprinted. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I think, we've had an embarrassment of, this is funny for me too. First when we started, we had no clips. From a period of like 93 to like 98, we had nothing going on, and I wasn't even involved in it. Suddenly we have an embarrassment of photo clips, and invariably what happens is there are misspellings, misquotes. That's part of the game.
I know you've got 12 photos of Marilyn Monroe somewhere.
I've got three rolls of film of Marilyn, and I've got 12 rolls of Billie Holiday.
I've seen some of the Billie Holiday.
And I've got to tell you, I'd rather have 12 rolls of Billie Holiday more than Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, no, me too. Well, I've seen the Billie.
Billie's my heart.
Are you going to exhibit the Billie Holiday?
We're looking forward to working with someone in Newark, either the Newark Museum or the Jazz Institute at Rutgers.
Sure.
Great people. I've made some great friends at the Jazz Institute at Rutgers. The thing is about the photographs is they've led me to other excitements. There's a photograph in the book of Louis Armstrong, and in the back of there's this kind of elder, looking guy, and he's the executive producer of the show, and it's George Simon. And I met George Simon before he passed away a couple of years ago, and I gave him a copy of the photograph. I called him, and so my father's photographs have been a key and an entrance into this world, without which I would not have,
Back to Billie.
Please.
Oh, are you going to...
Yes, I want a Billie book. Yes, I want a Billie show. Make it happen.
What other books and shows are there? I mean,
there's so much going on.
5 books in that
right.
house.
What we've got right now is an embarrassment of riches.
What are you showing now?
Currently, we're in a group show at the Avram Gallery in Southampton, which is a great group show called The Jews of Brooklyn.
I've seen
Okay,
it.
now this is a show that's been a traveling show. It's traveled.
It began at Brooklyn Borough Hall.
It actually was at Long Island University,
Okay.
which is the university that my father started the wet chemistry department in the early 60s and had been, on staff there for a long time. But it was a great companion show with great people. You've got Arthur Leipzig and Ruth Orkin and Harvey Wang and a great hotshot named Jonathan Torgovnik, who's, again, carrying the traditions that we all fight for as photo people. And it's great to see the future there.
Okay. Jerry was also an innovator, and in the 1970s he became famous for his sweeping panoramas, whether of buttes in the west or the mountains, the canyons of Manhattan, with this circuit camera, and I remember you telling me the story, and when we talked with Jerry, that this was an old monster. It was a 1902 and it weighed 50 pounds.
Well,
Did you ever accompany him on these shoots?
Yeah, I got to carry the film.
Oh, good.
No, I'll tell you the funniest story for me, with my father talking to me about this camera. The very first time he got the camera, he didn't even know how to use it, but he said he set it up, and he put it up on these old mahogany tripods, and he has this gear, rotation. And he was just imagining in his mind what it could do, the things that he could do with a camera that rotated that he could not do with a stationary camera. And that excitement and that creativeness that would send him into, I think, becoming more of an artist, as a photo artist than a photojournalist, although he was really looking forward to documenting America. And
Sure.
I think in his mind, there was, the cities, large cities, small cities, the natural landscapes, the glaciers, the deserts. And I mean, in his mind, he was really creating his vision of America.
And that vision of America, we'll see a clip from an ABC Good Morning America segment where Jerry, in 1978,
one of the very few pieces of archival footage that we actually have, which
talks about his art
Yeah.
and his work and what it meant to him.
what you get to see is a man absolutely in love with the creative process. I mean, with very small means. I mean, we did win the Guggenheim grant, but it was my mother, my father, and me in a van. And we just went and did it. We had I remember he took out a map of America, and he just, we're going to go here and here, and Thomas Wolfe's home. We'll go down there, and then we're going to go over to Detroit, and we'll do this, and then we're going to go to, and he made it happen.
Let's look at the clip.
Sandy talked with Jerry Dantzic, a photographer who has a fascinating exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York.
We want to show you today a very unusual photograph. Now, this is New York Harbor during Operation Sail 2 summers ago. The photograph you're looking at is 6 feet long, and it covers a 240-degree field of vision. It was taken, though, by one stationary camera. It's called a circuit camera. And 12 panoramic color photographs just like this one make up a special exhibit currently at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York. And the photographer is Jerry Dantzic. He's here this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fascinating.
Why, thank you, ma'am.
And this is the machine that's responsible
Yes, this is the lovely machine that we've been pursuing for about 6 years with great passion.
How does it work?
Well, basically speaking, it differs from an ordinary camera only in the sense that it actually is capable of turning fully in a circle, like this.
Just amazing.
It has a spring motor which drives it, and so, except for that pertinent fact, that's the only difference between that and an ordinary view camera.
Well, you have beside you a photograph that shows basically what this camera does. The camera itself is a work of art, though. It's beautiful.
Indeed. They're a little difficult to handle. They get a little long at times. On this one we have a full 360 because this little blue car in the corner and that little blue car on the end are the same car, and the house on the end and this building on the end are the same building. So
Okay,
that
let's bring 'em together here
when
so
they
we
come
can see.
together, actually, you can see them quite clearly, the end and the beginning.
Well, for this exhibition now, I understand you went to like 32 states here in the country and
Yes,
traveled around.
I was traveling on a grant and with my family, my wife and my 11-year-old son, and we had a van, and we embarked on what we call the voyage of the Panorama 1.
Well, let's take a look at some of your remembrances of the voyage. Okay.
This was the city of Pittsburgh from Duquesne Heights, where the three rivers come together. You can see Three Rivers Stadium back there. And it was a fantastic view of the city because as a student I had been through here often, and many of the buildings that I'm looking at are brand new to me, and I hadn't been there in a long time. The city has changed radically, and as we're moving downriver, you can see the steel mills off there to the right that really just stand right out. And then this is the opposite ridge. Now, this one runs about 240 degrees.
Huh. It's amazing.
Okay, so where does he go from the panoramas? We see you rediscovering the silver gelatin
Right. We did
black and whites of the 50s, and
Actually-
then we see this color magnificent stuff. What else did he do? What other types of things did he do?
Well, I actually have several 100,000 color slides that I've not printed up.
Several 100,000?
Yeah, there's an incredible embarrassment of riches, which I think every photographer who's been in the business for 50 years or more, I can remember a cover of a magazine in which Jay Maisel, another great friend of my father's who I've brought back into his life, had 6 feet of negatives, like a million slides or something. This is what photographers, they shoot for an assignment, they put it in the drawer, and then they move on to the next. And it's wonderful because at the end of the life, you sit back in the chair and you go, did I do that? Did I really shoot that? And I'm the kind of obsessive guy that I'll sit there for days, if not months, and I'll have the magnifier and I'll find those great shots.
So was the job and the work, rather than any retrospection, even though there may be introspection, there's not the concern with what you just did, it's moving on, and sometimes not even printed, just negatives.
Well, I think, it's a twofold. My mission statement for my father was about discovery. It started about discovery for him, but it's about sharing it, getting the work out there. And I've been doing some seminars and some slideshows, and I've been assisting as a media mentor for the Home of the Free program up in the Bronx, which is including kids and their, seeing the world and shooting public servants, and it's a great program. But I think that the whole idea is that everything comes from the photographs,
right?
And that I want to pull this way, and I want to see, can I help this other photographer? What about this person here? And everything that I've been doing really comes from my father, and the excitement and the buzz. As I said, a photograph of somebody who's next to Louis Armstrong suddenly becomes a great friend, and I now maintain that gentleman's archive.
Okay, let's talk about Jerry and his photography, and particularly here. I was particularly struck with his Times Square photographs, and there's been a lot of Times Square photographs. Now, let me just read something that Jerry said, because I want to get his words. Quote, I was walking in Times Square. It was New Year's Eve, not quite midnight. They were blowing horns, a little necking going on. Everybody getting terribly romantic and falling down. I was just hiding along with the crowd and shooting away. But the shooting away, both in Times Square and in other places, resulted in these brilliant blacks and whites. You've got swanky Manhattan, you've got Coney Island, you've got glamorous celebrities. You've got boxers eyeing other boxers. You've got the bongo players. You've got real New Yorkers doing what they do. And as you mentioned earlier, he makes icons out of the ordinary.
I think that's what it is. And again, I want to give thanks, because it's a tremendous team effort. That my being here, the book, the shows. It does not happen without people who believe in you. And the great people at Twice Magazine, Abbott Miller and Patsy Tarr and these people, they gave us our first 12-page, out of everything, there's a 12-page pictorial of Times Square in 1999.
Fabulous.
Which it was unheard of, because my father hadn't had anything in a magazine in almost 10 years.
Right.
So suddenly, what happens is, through a phone call here, through a contact there, I get the opportunity, and suddenly something falls into place. I think a lot of it has to do with luck. And then luck gets you there, but the photography is so good that it keeps you there.
Okay. Now, another photograph that I particularly love were the sandhogs digging that third tube of the Lincoln Tunnel. You catch the work and the life of the city. Future. Is there another 50s in focus? You've got thousands of photographs.
The exciting thing of the book.
And is there a 60s in focus?
We've got a 60s incite. 60s incite is definitely a major thing that's in the back works. I mean, certainly this is meant to be, sort of an introductory platter with all the different things. It's got about 12 or 10 different subjects in there. And each one of them could be a separate book. We could do a Times Square book. We could do a Coney book. We could do a jazz book. We could do a children's book. I mean, that's what this kind of...
You could do certainly a celebrities book.
Certainly a celeb book. I mean, I'm looking forward to doing, Dancing by Dantzic.
Oh,
which, starting with, ballet school children through burlesque and through all kinds of dancers. And
well, you didn't show me the
rock and roll. I've
pictures.
got Dick Clark rock and roll dancers from the 50s. One of the first articles on Dick Clark in Philadelphia, because my mother was teaching at Bryn Mawr and my father would travel. So he shot for Pageant magazine, and it's crazy. I think it was like Fats Domino was playing that night, and it's incredible stuff. The more I look, the more I find. And the exciting thing is I don't have everything yet. I'm still finding stuff. I'm still printing up contact sheets. I'm still discovering new slides. I think for me, I've had the dream of the bookshelf, which has 10 or 15 of my father's books and 3 or 4 of my other father's friends' books next to it. And this is the legacy that I want to be responsible for, so that the children of tomorrow are not going to just have the MTVs and the Xboxes, because this is the New York and the world that I want to fight for, and that I want to remind people, look at the world. And that's what my father basically is saying to me. He's saying, look at the world. This is what you missed, and I want to show you this. And I think that's the incredible visual information that a photograph is about.
Right. One of my absolute favorite photographs, and we will come to it, is the photograph that closes this volume, and it is the famous Boys on the Raft photo. And that photo, to me, in some ways, really does sort of capture the work. How did you discover the photo, and why its placement right here?
Well, interestingly enough, as an archivist, you find out what shows, what places this picture appeared in the Photography and the Fine Arts 2 show at the Metropolitan in the 1960s. Ivan Dmitri wrote an incredible letter saying that this was a great photograph. I actually have the letter. It was then subsequently donated to ICP in 1982.
ICP?
International Center for Photography.
Okay.
My father had been great friends with Cornell Kappa in the 50s. Cornell at that time was in charge of ICP. And in memory of Ivan Dmitri, this was donated to ICP from that show. My father lived up the street, 2 blocks away from this photograph where this was taken, and I have video of that, and I might bring that by for you. But what I like about the photograph is not just the photograph, but if you pull back a page and you read the work, or you hear my father speak these words.
Yes. Let me once again read. Rivers define a city the way a man parts his hair. They wander and separate and curve and provide starting points for the eye to linger upon. Where the rivers come to the sea, the city first took its life and acquired its sense of grandeur. And on the river's edge, the man-altered landscape grew and became sovereign, and withered and grew again. He continues, much of my life has centered on ports and rivers. I have climbed the high steel of new bridges and skyscrapers and laughed with sandhogs building caissons beneath the deep, dark water. So you've got this New Yorker with this love of the city, but this mythological quality here. This is Jim and Huck coming down the Mississippi. I mean, this is almost mythic New York.
It was most recently in a show at the Museum of the City of New York, and it was definitely a Mark Twain idol. I think that's what they said it was in the New York Times. It is the crystallization of so many things. It's the eternal childhood. It's the adventure. It's the excitement. It's just the pure gusto of what the city's about. It's a word that was used by Ben Lifson to describe my father's photographs. Ben being a great family friend who I actually found by email in Mexico at the time and wrote this incredible forward to the book, who had written a great article for the Village Voice about the panoramas way back. And one of the things I've done is I've tied those together.
Okay. Speaking of myth, I look forward to more photographs from Jerry Dantzic and more of these almost mythic photographs. And I thank you for
It's a pleasure.
being here.
The future's
and let's
wide
do
open.
It again.
I look forward to it, and I look forward to helping everyone.
Thank you.